Hello. Thank you for watching. Here are my thoughts about political parties. Overall, they're a negative thing. I'm going to try to give very few specific examples because I'm going to talk about principles that any decent person agrees with. And so, it's a historic fact, it's a fact, that the United States Constitution says nothing about political parties. Zero. We have a long tradition of the president and vice president being from the same political party. But Abraham Lincoln didn't do that. It has happened that they were from different parties. But it's not in the Constitution. The Constitution does have an amendment, that's one of the early amendments, that makes the president and the vice president be voted on simultaneously, or they're a running mate, a pair running together. You vote on the package. And that was a good idea, so we don't have a president and a vice president with opposite ideas. In a scenario where you have opposite ideas and beliefs in the president and the vice president, there's going to be some temptation to kill the president to get somebody in with different thoughts and ideas. So it's good for the voters to not have their will overturned by an assassination, by having, somebody with opposite beliefs in the vice presidency. The Founding Fathers denounced political parties. This is a historical fact. Outside of the Constitution, the writings we have from them, the sayings that got written down, they denounced political parties. They were worried that people would love their political party more than the country. They were worried that people would make decisions based on a political party and not based on what was right for the country. And they've been proven correct. We should love our country more than a political party. Political parties, however, could, and I believe they have, taken a greater place in some people's hearts and priorities than the whole country. Impeachments should be based on whether a president has committed high crimes and misdemeanors, not based on the political party of a president, not orchestrated because a president is not liked because of a difference of opinion. But political parties could result in a president being impeached just because there's a different political party in the legislature and they are going to get rid of somebody they disagree with. That's not the way our system of government is supposed to work. If the president is a really bad idea, you convince the voters when it's time for re-election. As long as the president is not committing high crimes and misdemeanors, then the legislature needs to act like mature adults and talk with the president and make compromises. It's possible, and it maybe has happened, that a person's opinion about an issue changed, or they never had an opinion and they were only parroting the party line, because the party bosses changed their opinion, or the party bosses made a proclamation. Whether that's party bosses who are only in the party, in the leadership of a political party, but not in an elected position, or elected winners of elections that are in the party and leading it. Everybody's opinions about things should be based on fundamental principles that are good principles that they hold to, facts of the situation, and not, well, so-and-so is the president of this and that party, or the CEO of this and that party, the administrative director, this and that party, and he said this, so I think this. No, if you thought a certain thing was a good thing when a Democrat was in the White House, you're a bad person. You are a morally bad person if your opinion changes about that same idea based on who is in there next, being of a different party. If you've had some kind of realization about that principle, then you're not a bad person, because people can learn new things and grow. But if President A years ago did something, President B does something now, or President A long time ago did something, and then President B in the past did the same, did something different. Ignore the fact of whether you like or don't like the president in office now. Imagine we're talking about something a president 40 years ago did and a president 30 years ago, or president 10 years ago. If you thought something was a good idea when President A did it, you must think it was a good idea when President B does it, unless you have had some kind of a realization, seen new information, had new experiences, and you really did change your opinion about that principle. But there have been people, oh, no, we need to do this. 20 years later, President so-and-so is so evil because he said the same thing I said 20 years ago. They don't say that. They say, he's so evil because he says, and then they say the same things they were saying 20 years ago. Alright, it's a sad thing if somebody is in a safe district. There are some congressional districts in the United States of America where there is a extreme majority of the people that live there that are of one political party. And those people are going to vote for whoever is of that one party to go back to Congress, even if that person has done bad or embarrassing or stupid things. A stupid person should not have a safe seat in Congress because they're of the one political party that has that's the majority in their district. That's a symptom of political parties. And that's one argument for term limits too. Term limits would force a new face to be sent to Congress every so many years, even if the majority of the people in the district really like so-and-so who's really stupid, or done really immoral things, or whatever the situation is. Okay, now, in some states in the United States of America, we have what we call a referendum process. A referendum is a law which is voted on directly by the people. It's also written directly by the people. The process is that somebody who wants a referendum writes their idea down. You have to actually put your ideas down on paper for a referendum. You don't get to just run around chanting beautiful poetry or wonderful ideas, and then when people go to the polls, well, there was a guy walking around saying this word, time to vote on it. No. You write it down, you get petitions, and there is a legal limit. The laws about referendums, they vary based on from one place to another. Different states might have different criteria, but there is a certain number of petitions that you get. Those petitions get verified. If your verified petitions, if your petitions you turned in are verified, legitimated, and they match the number of petitions required, then that law goes on the ballot and the voters vote directly. Isn't that what legislatures are for? That's the whole point in having a legislature. So I've got mixed emotions about the referendum process. It's good, I guess, to have a way to get good laws passed when you've got a bunch of idiots in the state legislature or the governorship. But maybe it isn't a good thing, because then the voters, if the voters really wanted this one good idea, they would vote for legislators that would do it. And why, so why we should not need a referendum system, because the voters should pay attention to whether the people they send to the legislature really agree with them and believe what they believe and have the same concepts and ideas making them tick. But we have seen in United States history sometimes where a majority of people voted for a referendum, and at the same election they voted for a political candidate and or party that is completely opposed to the referendum they voted for. Those voters are being inconsistent, and it's because of the corruption of political parties that the stupid voters, and I don't need to apologize for that wording. You are stupid if you vote for fill-in-the-blank referendum, and then this candidate who's against that referendum. You're stupid. Stop being stupid. If the governor you send to your state capital refuses to allow the attorney general, or if it's a state where the attorney general is elected and not an appointee of the governor, if you voted for an attorney general who refuses to defend the referendum that was passed that you voted for in court, you're a stupid person. Maybe we shouldn't have that referendum system, and you should pull your head out of imagine places where people shouldn't stick their heads or do stick their heads. And pull your head out of places it shouldn't be. Realize what reality is. Vote for the person that you really agree with, and don't vote for the person you disagree with. And then a referendum that the person you disagree with is going to shut down, counteract, not enforce, not defend. Alrighty, so, and maybe the most important reason that political parties are a bad thing is the Constitution of the United States of America sets up 3 distinct branches of government. Each branch has their own responsibilities, powers, and authorities that the other branches don't have. It's a system of checks and balances, separation of powers, which is great. It is a great idea to limit and prevent tyranny, because no matter how tyrannical a bad president is in his heart, as long as he's not violating the boundaries of what the Constitution lets him do, he's got a limit to what he can do. He would need to convince the legislature to go along with him with a bad idea, and hopefully they would not go along with him, and the courts would hopefully not go along with a tyrannical idea. Alright, so these 3 branches are supposed to, the individual people in those branches are supposed to feel a sense of adversary, not like deadly, literally trying to kill each other sense of adversary, but there is supposed to be a mild sense of adversary and competition and jealousy between the different branches of government. And that jealousy will help to enforce those limits that are in the Constitution. For example, one way a president is limited in the Constitution is to get the process of having a treaty with the United States of America, at least one, the way the Constitution does it, outlines it, is you need to convince the president. The president is the negotiator for the country, not some ex-president, not some guy who didn't win the election for president. Yeah, maybe that's treason if you're not the sitting president and you're going over to talk to some other world leader. But The president and or official representative of the president goes and negotiates a treaty and signs it, but that treaty has zero power. It's not a legal treaty. It's not a legally binding treaty. That treaty must then be brought to the Senate. And 2/3 of the Senate, not just one vote more than half, 2/3 of the Senate must vote yes, must ratify that treaty, or it's not a treaty. If the Senate is doing its job and is jealous towards its powers, it will be highly offended at a president who makes treaties, acts like the treaties are a legitimate treaty, and orders the people under his command to act on treaties that the Senate never ratified or that the Senate rejected. But if they are of the same political party, there is a real danger that a Senate would not feel offended because he's their guy. The one in the White House is their guy. So having political parties creates a flaw in the system, or it acts against the system. It creates a system of government where we don't have three separate branches of government. If the president and a majority of the legislature are from the same political party, then we have one branch of government, which is the name of the political party government. And if the judges are acting politically and not being apolitical, a judge is not being political just because he agrees with a president who is of the same party who appointed him. The judge is being political if there's no legal or constitutional basis for his ruling, and it is against a president of a different party. But somebody could make a ruling against a president of a different party that's not political, or a ruling for the president of the same political party that appointed a judge and it not be a political decision. But there we go. That's another downside to political parties, is you could end up with a president and legislature cooperating too much. A president and a legislature acting like they are one branch of government, as opposed to separate branches of government that are supposed to have a jealous feeling about their responsibilities and their roles. Now, one thing I've heard about the political situation outside of the United States of America, from Ayaan Hirsi Ali's autobiography, you learn a little bit about the Dutch system of elections for the Dutch Parliament. And you do that because Ayaan Hirsi Ali was a candidate for the Dutch legislature, Parliament. Well, those are synonyms, legislature and Parliament, although there's a nuanced difference, I guess you could say, but it's a nuanced difference, not a big difference. And in the Netherlands, at least the year that she was on the ballot, the voters vote for the political party, not the individual. I find that extremely disturbing for several reasons. You should get to vote for the person that's actually going to be in the parliament voting for laws. The individual person is the one that actually does the voting. You should vote directly on the individual person. I find that disturbing because of that. Because then a political party could be deceitful about what they believe, or have one person who, for some reason, is in that party, even though it doesn't make sense, even though that person is in diametrical opposition to everything, or 99% of the things that everyone else in the party is in, but they get bribed to stay in the party. They have some personal or family tradition of being in that party that they won't overlook. And then the voters are getting deceived. The voters should get to vote for the individual. What if there is a voter in the Netherlands who likes person A from party B and person B from party A, and they can't get both those people they like. They have to go for only the party. That's ridiculous. Really, we should not call that a democracy or democratic if you're not voting on the person, if the voter doesn't get what they want. So, thank you for watching. My thoughts about the negatives of having political parties. And you have a good day. And don't be a person who is a slave to a political party. Don't be a person who believes baseless lies about another political party because you have a emotional connection to one party. And have a good day.